part of what's happened in the broader argument, Paul Graham was tweeting that everybody in tech was on the side of the visas and the people who weren't. And I know enough people in tech who are saying, no, a lot of people are against this. They just don't want to get fired. They don't want to speak out and get defenestrated from the industry. And a lot of the anons making these arguments are people who work in tech. And I know people who are libs in tech who don't like this and don't like that this has happened. And they are quietly in support of the argument against. And that's part of what has played out. And I think also Vivek has just done the biggest America First mitzvah, if I'd use a word like mitzvah for America First, just by making the least charismatic argument for this policy.
I think for your listeners, we should recap his argument, because I saw it. Was it on Christmas Day or the day after Christmas? It was
something like that. It was certainly a Christmas present for the people who oppose this policy. I have the whole thing pulled up. It's a little long, but I will read it. It's written in very small text, so forgive me if I screw this up. But yes, this is arguing for this policy. I will read it. The reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over native, in quotations, Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit, a lazy and wrong explanation. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers, and if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth, all caps. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s, and likely longer. That's the moment that Vivek came into sentience, by the way, the 1990s. That doesn't start in college. It starts young, all caps. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. A culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World or Zach and Slater over Screech and Saved by the Bell or Stefan over Steve Urkel and Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. Fact. I know multiple sets of immigrant parents in the 90s who actively limited how much their kids could watch those TV shows precisely because they promoted mediocrity. That was my one critique of Family Matters, is promotion of mediocrity, but I will get back to the reading. And their kids went on to become wildly successful STEM graduates. More movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends, more math tutoring, fewer sleepovers, more weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less TV, more creating, less chillin', in quotations. More extracurriculars, less hanging out at the mall, in quotations. Most normal American parents look skeptically at those kind of parents. More normal American kids view the kinds of kids with scorn. If you grow up aspiring to normalcy, normalcy is what you will achieve. Now close your eyes and visualize which families you knew in the 90s or even now who raise their kids according to one model versus the other. Be brutally honest. Normalcy doesn't cut it in a hyper-competitive global market for technical talent. And if we pretend like it does, we'll have our asses handed to us by China. This can be our Sputnik moment. We've awakened from slumber before, and we can do it again. Trump's election hopefully marks the beginning of a new golden era in America, but only if our culture fully wakes up. A culture that once again prioritizes achievement over normalcy, excellence over mediocrity, nerdiness over conformity, hard work over laziness. That's the work we have cut out for us, rather than wallowing in victimhood and just wishing or legislating alternative hiring practices into existence. I'm confident we can do it. Oh boy. Wow.
This is our sleepover Sputnik moment on social media.
Yeah, I did not know sleepovers were the problem. That sounded pro-social to me, the idea of sleepovers. And I mean, I don't know what happens to the normal people in this vision for America, this global rat race that's depicted by Vivek, but my God, there might be something to it. By the way, if he said this and it wasn't in service of this particular policy, I might be more inclined to hear it out and go, okay, maybe we need to tiger mom a little harder. I certainly in my marriage am more, hey, you got to do this and that. And my wife is a little bit more, hey, sleep over and you achieve a balance theoretically. I get it. I get that sort of like that sort of holds appeal to me. I'm not rejecting of that completely, but there's something so sleazy about trying to push this policy and then making this ridiculous 1990s sitcom based argument that it's because you guys are lazy that you need to be forced to compete with the entirety of the world, earning lower wages, having this non-salary incentive of the visa against you and your companies. Absolutely insane, crazy to make that argument. He's nuked his political career. And I guess if you're trying to get him on the couch and figure out why, it's because he really believes it, because why else would he do that?
Yeah, this is his kind of the Brahmin Indian Bill Cosby moment. He's like, America, pull your pants up.
Yeah. I saw various black commentators having fun with that one.
Well, yeah, people are saying that this is how black Americans have had to be talked to. Like this is how a commentary about their family raising, culture sounds.
It would be quite creative. Ways. Yes and no. I don't think anybody has ever made the argument that family matters is the problem in Black America. And I mean, it's almost like he missed that a lot of these characters are beloved, that people really liked Steve Urkel and they liked Screech, and that seems to have passed him by. But yes, I don't think many people have argued that family matters is what's wrong with Black America. And I believe he's also the first to argue that Boy Meets World is the problem with white America, tacitly, I suppose.
All the cultural references are funny and they chip away at his larger point, but he makes kind of the nativist, for lack of a better word, MAGA, shut down immigrant argument better than anyone can, because he's basically conceding that this is not about just filling a skills gap. He wants more immigration to change American culture. He's saying it's not just about economics. It's not just about inventing the newest widget or, patent. It's actually about getting in, changing our high schools, changing our way of life, and getting rid of our sleepovers.
Making the world one giant Stuyvesant High School is the vision of Vivek, which is appealing to some people. It's a very good high school.
I think what you said about if this was in a vacuum and applied on the affirmative action debate in terms of how to revive American competitiveness, in almost any other context, there are valuable insights from this post, or at least the sentiments underlying it. It's just to make it about immigration, to say we are trying to replace you. It's
because you're lazy.
Because you're lazy. Because America is fundamentally a backwards, emotional, not cognitive, STEM focused society. We need to replace Americans with Indian imports of engineers. That's essentially what he's saying.
Well, and then it's combined with this other aspect that's uncomfortable to get into, because a lot of the visa argument is about more middle-class jobs. But I think Sarah Hayter was making the point. Let me pull up the tweet. I hope it's the correct tweet as I read it. Aside from the visa abuse issue, it shouldn't be surprising that the backlash is focused so intently on Indian diaspora. Their success is so wildly disproportionate to their numbers, it is bound to chafe/unnerve. I thought we'd see it in the Bobby Jindal / early Nikki Haley era, honestly. And Sarah is of South Asian descent, for those who do not know, if that's relevant context. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's also happened concurrent with all the major companies seem to be run by Indian or Indian American CEOs, and people, they get shaken up by these sorts of things in a society. And that seems to be, I'm not excusing it as a reaction, but I remember taking a history of the Holocaust course in college, and it was an excellent course. And it wasn't just, I don't know, a Steven Spielberg two-dimensional rendered history. It really got deeper into a lot of the social dynamics that led to it. and how you had a situation where there was a liberalization, the Pale of Settlement was opened up, and all of a sudden in these very traditional European societies, Lee's crossed his arms right now. He's talking about the Holocaust. I'm on guard for anything. I'm on guard for anything that's going to happen. I don't know what he's going to say.
We can turn up the notch a few times on this podcast.
So, if you believe what has happened, no, but
let's peel back the conspiracy.
But effectively, what happened to these societies is that suddenly, at the University of Berlin or the University of these various Eastern European countries, you've got this, as Amy Chua has called, a market dominant minority, where half the people at these universities are Jewish. And this isn't happening right now. This is hundreds of years ago, before TV, right? And that provoked a significant populist backlash. And I think that's part of what's happening as well, where Vivek's not just talking about replacement on a middle class level, or that's not what's being conveyed. It's this idea that you are going to be now effectively run by people who have this perspective on life that is different from your lazy, soft sleepover perspective on life. And that is also perhaps roiling some of these sentiments that are happening concurrent with the policy questions and these deeper questions of what even is a nation, what even are borders.
No, I think that's right. And I think there are a lot of parallels between some waves of Jewish immigration to the U.S. and, this initial attempt to anglicize names and kind of initially conceal their Jewish identity. And that was certainly the case with some of the initial waves of Indian immigrants. Bobby Jindal, Catholic, very kind of folksy American, outside of his name and skin color, not that different than any typical Southern Republican politician. Nikki Haley aligned herself with evangelicals, did not kind of openly practice. I guess she converted, although she sometimes still attends Sikh practice. Sure. I'm not sure if you're religious, but does not openly identify as Sikh for sure. Vivek is interesting because he's really the very first South Asian American politician who is charismatically Hindu. You've seen all those clips of him defending the Hindu faith, talking about his religious practices in front of evangelical audiences in Iowa, or really anywhere. He's done this college campus tour where he allows anyone to challenge him, debate bro status, and there are Christians who challenge his faith and say it's fundamentally pagan, and I don't know. There's a lot of interesting clips on the internet of him defending his Hindu faith, and I give him huge props for that because it doesn't look easy to do, especially in that context. But it's probably part of this backlash a little bit. We have a lot of South Asian politicians. Few have become as prominent as he has. Few are as confrontational, and few are as outwardly Hindu. So for Americans to step back and exactly what you're mentioning and say, okay, well, something like 12 of the top 100 corporations in America are run by Indian Americans. The average income for Indian Americans is one of the highest of any ethnic groups. And I think I've seen some databases where they're the highest. And they're a very recent immigrant group. There are small waves in the early 20th century, a trickle after Hart Celler in 1965, but it really picked up in the 80s and 90s. So it's really quite recent. And to achieve all this success, and then suddenly, in just in the last few years, kind of have a few national spokesmen like Vivek, who are not attempting to fully assimilate in terms of changing their religion or their names, and to do this kind of debate bro thing where he's saying, we're going to bring more and we're going to change your culture and get rid of your sleepovers. I mean, it all kind of comes together.
I mean, we could be living in the Indian century. This isn't theoretically going back the other direction. This is a country with over 1 billion people that has rapidly industrialized. And I think this will be more of a feature of life in America and these other European countries that will need to be sorted out.